الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ثم أما بعد. I'd like to start with this session, inshallah, with an Arabic word and some vocabulary for you. And I think this will structure our conversation in a good direction. The word in the Arabic language is al-ghulu. The root letters are ghain, lam, and waw. Ghulu. For the three of you that are taking notes. Okay, al-ghala, they say in Arabic, naqid al-rakhs. The word ghala literally means expensive, to be high valued. Something that is unusually pricey or inflated in value has ghulu in it, or ghala in it. That's why it's the opposite of ar-rakhs, which means cheapness. Ghalla is also used in Arabic when you overfeed someone, or you overestimate the value of something and you overconsume it and it poisons you. So sama, ghalla comes in the meaning of poisoning also. And the idea here is, just because something's expensive, and you say, well, you got an opportunity to consume it, you consume too much of it and it can actually kill you, it can hurt you, right? Then the word ghala also means majawazatul qadr, or majawazatul had fi kulli shay. Going overboard in any matter is called ghulu. In other words, because it came from the idea of expensive, when you value something above other things and therefore you give it more of your time, more of your attention, spend more of your money on it, etc., then you are engaged in the idea of, or the crime of ghulu, really. Al-ghulu also leads to, the Lisan al-Arab argues, al-i'da, it leads to animosity against others. In other words, when you value something really, really high, you end up violating somebody else's rights and therefore end up making enemies. That's one way to think about it. Another way to think about it is when you value something really high and you're all about it, that's all you do all the time, then eventually you burn out and you hate the very thing you loved. The idea is when you're really into something, like I'll give you a contemporary example of ghulu, is some song comes out and people are downloading it and they love it and they're listening to it like 100 times, they've looped it and they're listening to it over and over and over again, and a week goes by and if they hear it, they have a severe allergic reaction, like I hate that, turn that off, I'm tired of it, you see? So that's actually ghulu. You took too much of it until it almost became poisonous to you, and now you hate it. You can't stand it anymore, okay? So that's what happens even when you take something that you love and you go too far in it, then you lose that love for it. You have to take it in moderation. That's the idea behind ghulu. And then finally, al-maghali. This is an interesting term because the Arabs like to think of, abstract ideas of like going overboard or being extreme. They like to think of it in the sense of imagery. So they say, al-maghali bis-sahm, al-mughali bis-sahm, al-rafi' bis-sahm, yuridu bihi aqsa al-ghaya. So there's a guy with a bow and arrow, and he's stretched his arrow as far back as it can possibly go, and he's held it up high at an angle, the aim of which is to go further than any other arrow shooter has ever gone. His purpose isn't to hit a target, his purpose is to go farther than anyone has ever gone. He wants to break the record, basically, of distance, right? So to go really far, or to aim to go further than anyone else in something, that is ghulu. So for instance, you have, nowadays we're in the age of video games, right? So you have, PlayStation and Xbox or whatever. The video games that come out, they have an online component now, right? So they have rankings. So you're like the 38,563rd deadliest assassin in Assassin's Creed, right? And if you really suffer from ghulu, you will not sleep until you're number 1. And you will like pat yourself on the back when you reach 25,000 and then 11,000 and 8. I'm ranked 8,000. I had a student this year at the Dream program. We introduce ourselves in the beginning of the year, and one of our obligations, the way we introduce ourselves, is you tell me where you're from, what your name is, where you're from, and tell me one interesting thing about yourself. So one student said, my name is so-and-so, I'm from this place, I'm ranked 115 in FIFA. I've been calling him FIFA for 8 months now, so 6 months. But it's a form of ghulu where you want to keep breaking records, and you don't even know why you're doing it. You just want to do it. You want to earn all the trophies. You want to get 100%. You want to land that combo in the game, and you're going to keep practicing it like your akhirah depends on it. There are people that have ghulu. You ever heard of what's that? Comic-Con, I think it's called, right? Comic-Con. Where people master like things like Street Fighter and like there are Mortal Kombat tournaments, and People from all over the world that have spent hundreds of hours trying to like perfect the 18-hit combo from Akuma or something. That's ghulu. That's ghulu. There are people that become movie buffs. They have to have a collection. They have to have seen everything. They have to have all this trivia. People that become sports buffs, they get ghulu in sports. Right? They know all the statistics. I mean, they're literally, their riwayat are sahih. From like, where this guy went to college, who recruited him, what his career was, how many rings has he earned, all of it. It's incredible. But it's all ghulu. It's overboard. It's overboard. You keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. You become an enthusiast and eventually a fanatic. A contemporary example of ghulu, of course, it's not as hot anymore, but it was for a long time, Star Wars. Right? Star Wars is a kind of ghulu. People went to Star Wars movies dressed in ihram and proper like legit attire, This is serious stuff. I mean, people take this stuff very, very seriously. When you get into something, you really get into something. A social media example of ghulu would be people that can't get off of their Facebook page, like that lady over there. Nobody. I just pointed randomly. The guy's like, which one? I've done that pretty much every speech I've given. That never gets old. But at least she got off of Facebook. Anyway. So why am I dividing ghulu for you? Because 2 places in the Quran, Allah turned His attention to the Christian community. Not us, the Christian community. Allah says, Ya Ahl al-Kitab, la taghlu fi dinikum. People of the book, don't do ghulu, what I just described to you. Don't become extreme. Don't go overboard in your religion. Which is very strange language, especially for the Christians. I've spoken to multiple denominations of Christians in my limited career, and have gained lots of insights from the study of the Bible recently. More recently, I've been studying the Bible in order to understand the Quran better, not to verify the Quran, but to appreciate the beauty and the perfection of the Quran by studying the Bible. I can't begin to tell you how profoundly it has changed my appreciation of the Quran. It really, really has. And even the study of Christian history has changed my appreciation of the Quran. It's a new dimension altogether. I'll give you a little taste just before, because I mentioned that tangent. I have to give you a little taste. Just a little something. Okay. So you guys have heard of the people of the cave? Did you know there are churches to this day around the ancient city of Ephesus, churches to this day in parts of Jordan, in Turkey, in Greece even, that have, how churches have stained windows? They have stained windows with paintings of 7 people caved up, bound inside a cave, and a dog with them. Yep. And they have a day of the feast. They celebrate the saints that died inside for their faith. They were true Christians. And they sing a chant that a Greek minister wrote. And when they sing it, they believe that the saints' souls come back into the church and they pray for them. And there's actually a place where they believe in the ancient city of Ephesus. It's pretty funny. In Turkey, there's a big sign that says, 7 sleepers this way. It's silly. But anyway, so they go there and a lot of Christians actually from those denominations, they go and they pray there like for a few days. They stay there because they want those saints to bless them, right? So they literally became awliya to them. The Ashabul Kahf literally became awliya to them. And if you read Surah Al-Kahf, you will find that they were the ones that said, Allah has no awliya. Right? So because they became awliya, Allah came to their defense. And this is not in the Bible. This is poetry written afterwards, right? This is not in the Bible. But they had been taken as awliya, and Allah Azza wa Jal came to redeem their integrity as people of Tawheed. And their legacy, unfortunately, had become the exact opposite of what they came to preach. So Allah set the record straight. Subhanallah. And but you won't appreciate how clear the truth is until you study the legend of the 7 sleepers from different civilizations. And you see what they have to say, and you compare it with the Quran, and you say, oh, Ya Rabb, wow. It's incredible. And that's just one example. I've been reading some other stuff too, but I'll tell you about it later. Okay. Ya Ahl al-Kitab. People of the book, la taghlu fi dinikum. Don't go overboard in your book. Don't go overboard in your religion. Don't go overboard in your religion. How can that be? The Christian community, many denominations of it, basically abandoned the law of God. They said the Bible's laws no longer apply to us. We don't have to abide by them. The blood of Jesus is enough to save us. We're already saved. The law was a means by which our souls were cleansed. We no longer need the law because Jesus already paid for our sins. So how can they go overboard in their religion? They got nothing to go overboard in. What is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about? What Allah Azza wa Jalla is talking about now is something very powerful, and we have to really, really understand this. Our beliefs, not just our practices, our beliefs are about balance. Our balance. We have to balance our beliefs about Allah with our beliefs about the prophets, with our beliefs about the angels, with our beliefs about the books, with our beliefs about the afterlife. There are a lot of these unseen realms, right? And even the prophets have become, in a sense, the unseen to us because they're in history to us. They're the unseen to us too now, right? And even to those who were in front of them, the fact that they are messengers was also a belief in the unseen because they see a physical man, they don't see the angel talking to him. They don't see the ayat coming down. Even believing in a messenger in his physical presence was a belief in the unseen. But these unseen matters, you have to keep a very delicate balance between all of these entities. And if the only thing that can keep that balance is the authentic revelation from Allah. When you lose touch with that revelation, you start coming up with your own ideas about Allah and what He means, your own ideas about the Prophet and what he means, your own ideas about revelation and what it might mean, and you decide to highlight some things, emphasize some things, and de-emphasize other things entirely on your own terms. And if you have the right to do so, then the next person following this religion has the right to do so. So you end up with an innumerable amount of variations in beliefs. And you're all calling yourselves Muslims, or you're all calling yourselves Christians. We're living in those times. So you have, for example, I listen to a lot of different kinds of podcasts. One of the podcasts I listen to is Speaking of Faith. Yes, I listen to NPR. Yeah, it's sad, but I do. So this show, Speaking of Faith, they interviewed 3 or 4 American Muslims, right? Islamic faith in America. That's what the show was called. It's an interesting podcast. And all 4 of these people, 3 women and 1 guy, originally the guy's from Afghanistan. I think that one of the women's originally Irani, her ancestry is Irani. Another one's Indian. Another one's Arab, I think. And they're all talking about, well, here's what Islam means to me. Islam actually doesn't mean to me that you have to believe in a God. You just have to believe in a higher power. So long as you believe in a higher power, it's fine. And then the other one introduced herself. She said, I am the alcohol drinking, fornicating, blah, blah, blah. And she made a list, and at the last adjective she gave herself was Muslim. And proud. And as I'm listening to this, close to getting into a car accident, I realized something. We are living at a time where people will decide the terms of their religion themselves. We are living in a religiously free society. Whether you practice this faith or don't practice it is entirely up to you. No matter how much somebody yells and screams at you, you're going to make your own decisions, aren't you? And so everybody, every person sitting here may end up with a very different and varied understanding of what Islam actually means. There is going to be a variation. That's a natural, inevitable fact. There's no denying it, there's no hiding from it, there's no running from it. The only thing we can do, instead of yelling and screaming, by the way, the group that yells and screams the most gets listened to the least. The group that gets frustrated the most and gets angry at the people the most, why are they not believing like we do? We quoted the ayat, they still don't listen to us. Yeah, that's why they don't listen to you, because you talk like that. People who are listening to you don't want to listen to you. It hurts their ears. But the variation of, and people are experimenting, right? Even Muslims, they're experimenting with their religion. If you go to different communities and you talk to different circles, this is one kind of circle. But I've had the blessing of going to different Muslim circles that aren't so religious. But they're Muslim too. And they define religion for themselves very, very differently. Not the same way as you and I would. And we're not used to that. But you know what will survive after all of these experiments? What will survive is what meets the test of reason, and what can balance the needs of the heart and the mind at the same time. The balanced view will survive. Everything else will wither away because people will get tired of it. It just doesn't last. It's a phase people go through and it burns out. I want to tell you in this opportunity that I have before you a little New York story as I get to these ayat. La taghlu fi dinikum. Don't go overboard in your religion. When I was a college student in 1875 in New York City, I was at Baruch. Baruch in the house, by the way? Baruch in the house? All right, very good, like 3 people, very good. Nothing much has changed at Baruch College. Okay. I did a year in Queens too. I'd done time here. Yeah. Alhamdulillah. Okay. So, when I was at college in New York, I wasn't really interested in religion. But when I found religion, New York is one of the coolest places to find Islam. Because you get every possible flavor of Islam. Every possible one. I'm not sure if that has changed much. Is it still as colorful? It's still pretty colorful? Okay. And depends on which masjid you end up in which street in Jamaica. Or, where you end up in Jackson Heights versus Woodhaven. You're going to end up with a very different khutbah. Where you are in Brooklyn can entirely determine your school of thought, your aqidah. Like, depends on where you are in Steinway, in Astoria. It is different. Very, very different. So, I ended up in one place, right? A couple of friends said, you need to come to this halaqah, it's awesome. You need to come there and study. So I was like, hey, I want to learn my religion. And now that I've just discovered this religion, I want to soak it all in. I want to take it all in, and I want to live by it. I just want the pure religion. So I go to this group, and they teach me that everyone else, unfortunately, outside of this masjid, they think they're Muslim. You see, but they don't have the proper beliefs. It's very sad. And we're the only place that has survived with the correct faith. And Allah did say that this is, I know this might seem strange to you, but the Prophet does tell us, فَطُوبَى لِلْغُرَبَاء, congratulations to the strange ones, we are it. And you need to save yourself, and you need to save your faith. So even though you've been, and I went enthusiastically in there, after masjid, after salat, this is how old I am. After Jummah, I used to go outside, and used to be a guy, he's still there on 29th Street by Masjid al-Rahman. He used to have a stand with nowadays DVDs, but back in the day, VHS, baby, tape cassettes of different speakers lined up. And I used to buy one every week and put it in my Walkman. Yes, I had a Walkman. I'm proud to admit this, And I used to listen to all these different speakers. So I went in there and I said, hey, have you heard of this speaker and this speaker? No, ya akhi, al-kareem, no. You don't listen to them. These people are calling to the hellfire. You need to protect your faith. You need to have the right beliefs. You need to make sure you learn from us. And I said, okay, I won't listen to those tapes. And I did. And I put those tapes away. And I wouldn't even look at them. And even though I benefited tremendously from them, I said, no, I must be wrong. I must not have thought clearly about this. And I started going to these halaqas. And I'm going week after week after week after week. And I'm getting more and more indoctrinated until I feel I miss my friends that aren't weird yet. Right? I haven't saved them yet. So I go back to my friends in college. Bro, you got to come to this halaqah. It's amazing. What's so amazing about it? It's the only right religion. Why, I love you. You're my bro. We have pizza together every time, but you're headed for the hellfire, bro. I just feel bad for you. So I need to save you and me. We need to go to Jamaica and we need to sort this out, right? I didn't mention which masjid in Jamaica on purpose because there's a lot of them, alhamdulillah. Okay. So anyway, we're doing this for a while until I had a friend slightly older than me, 3-4 years older than me, that has been around the block a little bit. And one time I'm trying to save his soul and he sits me down. And he goes, Noman, shut up. Okay. I'm going to tell you two things. You're wrong and you're stupid. And now that makes me, but I have the evidence. I have the daleel, I have the hadith, I have the ayah. He said, listen, you're being played with. Here's how. And he sits me down for 2 hours. And I go, but, and he crushes me. Then I go, but, and he crushes me again. But. Okay, fine. I need you to, and I understood something then. I need to keep an open mind. This religion is appealing because it asks people to think for themselves. And if you are part of any variation of this religion that is requesting from you to stop what? Thinking, it's no longer Islam. I don't know what that is. It's some mutated version of something. It's not Islam. The reflection, the thought, the critical thinking Islam never ends. It never ends. It only adds to our conviction. I'm not talking about the kind of thinking where you go, what if? And you run from one doubt to another doubt to another doubt to another doubt. فَهُمْ فِي رَيْبِهِمْ يَتَرَدَّدُونَ. Not like that. But when you hear something, you say, where'd you get that from? How do you know that's a valid position? How do we authenticate that? What are the scholarly positions behind it? Let's look at this in more depth. I don't doubt my religion, but I'm starting to doubt the way you're looking at this hadith. I'm having a bit of a doubt about the way you explain that ayah. I have a right to have that doubt. I'm not doubting Allah's book. I'm not doubting the words of the Prophet ﷺ, but I need clarification. And you know what? This deen came to change the stereotype of religion where you come into this religion, you learn something about it you don't understand, and you are supposed to ask, criticize. And it's okay if you're not satisfied with the answer and you keep asking until you get an answer. Maybe you framed the question the wrong way, but until you get to someone who can intellectually sit you down and clarify things to you, your quest continues. Your journey continues. And it comes with a humility also. Maybe there are ayat of the Quran, and there certainly are, that I will never understand. Maybe I will never understand Hamim. Maybe I will never understand as-samawat as-sab'a. Maybe I'll never understand that. That's part of the humility. But I'll keep asking. I'll keep exploring. I'll keep, wondering. My wonder won't stop. That's what the beauty of this faith is. Human beings were granted this beautiful gift of the intellect, and now we're being asked not to use it. And when you are asked not to use it, that is when imbalance begins. That's where imbalance begins. And when it happens for a few generations, then we get to the state where we are now. So you're a college student, or you're in your master's program, or you're 27, 28 years old, and you're a woman, and you're looking to get married, but your parents say no, only from Pakistan. And you say, there's a good brother at the college, he hasn't proposed or anything, but I think that he might be a good match. No. If you do this, if you bring this up again, I will kill myself, the mother says. Or the father says, he's holding his hand on the Quran, I've seen those too. If you do this, if you ever bring this again, you are not my daughter. What movie did you watch that in, bro? Where do you get that from? Like, what's with all the drama? Because you have to listen to your parents. You know what this is? And you can't ask questions like, why? What's so wrong with that? You can, and you will never get a straight answer. Because we said. Because Islam. Islam what? Islam! In other words, your answer becomes more legitimate if you raise the volume on the same wrong answer. This was one time, there was this uncle who was like justifying some racist comment he made. And I was like, Uncle, where did you get this from? It's in the books. And I said, which books? All of them. Go read. I'll be back. I can't beat that. You got me, it's in the books, all of them. Yes, the Mein Kampf is a pretty fun read. But this generation of Muslims, we gotta start at the drawing board. So I was telling you about my journey, and I didn't ask questions. And I said, because now this one person had kind of shifted my thinking a little bit, I said, maybe he's right, I should trust him. Everything he does, I'm gonna do. Because he slapped sense into me, and so I'm gonna just follow. What do you do? We're gonna go to this halaqah, so I start going to this halaqah. And I attended and I really enjoy it. And so even though they never said this, subconsciously I start thinking everything else must be garbage. These people are everybody's just waiting to be slapped by my friend. And if they got slapped by my friend, they'd be in this halaqah too. And this journey continued. And I went from one group, one masjid, one ideology, one worldview of Islam to another, to another, to another, to another. Oh, there were lots of them. Somebody brought me a pamphlet from one of them today. What do you think about this? And I read it, I was like, I've been there. That was 1998 right there. You guys don't even know. All of this, been there, done that. It's all done. It's old. You know who's still going through this? England. When I go to England, people ask me questions and I chuckle. Like this guy, literally, seriously, I was driving in the car with him. He goes, so bruv, where do you take your knowledge? Where do you take your knowledge from? Who are your sheikhs? And I was like, awkward silence for a moment. And I was like, I'm sorry, bro. I didn't answer you immediately because for a second I thought I was traveling through time. Because where do you take your knowledge is a question from 1997. We already finished this. We're past this already. What do you... Have you been in the same, like, do you visit geocities.com? Where are you from? Like, some people don't even know what GeoCities is. That's funny. That's how old I am. Anyway, so, but people were stuck in a rut. We find one thing and we train ourselves to think about Islam one way, and everybody else has to think about it this way, and if they don't, they must be wrong. And we have litmus tests for this. I literally used to go visit masajid in New York where there's a guy there, hey, you on the sunnah? And I'd be like, what else is there? All right. It was like a litmus test. What am I going to say? No, of course not. Sunnah, what is that? Doesn't make any sense. I went to masajid in England. Check this out. I went to one masjid in England. I went to visit. This is the tragedy of this. I went to visit Sheikh Akram Nadwi. Sheikh Akram Nadwi is one of the leading muhaddithun of the ummah today. The man has written a 50-volume book on just the female collectors of hadith in Islamic history. Life profiles of 2,500 women. I can't read 50 pages. He's written 50 volumes on this one subject. Just because he said, we think Islamic studies is the realm of men. That's actually historically inaccurate. I'm going to show you why. He lists first the teachers of Imam Bukhari rahimahullah that were women and what their lives were, where they studied from, and then among the students, and so on and so forth. That 20-minute conversation I had with him at his house, first of all, it was a real honor to be at his house. The 20-minute conversation I had in his house answered questions I've had for 10 years. And the people around him don't even know. They don't even know. SubhanAllah. What a tragedy, It is so easy for you to dismiss people when you don't know enough. So easy, Allah says, don't do ghulu in your religion. Don't go overboard. So I was going from one group to another, to another, to another, to another, to another, and guess what happened eventually? I burnt out. What does ghulu mean? You go into something too far, and you start hating it. Just burnt out. Not going to the masjid, not really hanging out with anybody, just kind of depressed. Just depressed. And the only time you hear about Islam is you hear one group delegitimizing another, speaking out against another. That's all you hear. You don't hear anything about Islam itself. You just don't hear it. So I started thinking back about all these groups. That all the groups I've been through. All the different masjids, all the different halaqas, all the different sheikhs, all of them. And I realized something. All of them had something beautiful. They had something very ugly, and they also had something very beautiful. Why should I let go of the beautiful parts? Why should I do that? Why can't I hold on to the good stuff and keep it? And my litmus test, I don't impose this on you, my litmus test became the moment any group starts speaking out against another, I'm going to put the mute button on. I don't care about that stuff. I just need to learn something that will make me a better Muslim. That's all I care about. And if you give me something that will make me think of my brother and my sister as less, I don't want that. It's just not interested. It doesn't interest me. It takes away from my love of other Muslims. I can't take it. I will still disagree with Muslims. I will disagree with scholars even sometimes, respectfully. But I will never use that to think less of them. That's going overboard in your religion. You can love the ideas you believe in, but don't hate the people who don't believe in them. It's not cool. That's actually pride. This is a battlefield of ideas. I am free to share my ideas. You are free to disagree with me. And after even the strongest disagreement, if we can openly talk in a space where none of us are threatened, none of us are raising our voices, none of us are going crazy, we can just have a civil conversation. That's when this ummah moves forward. Where is the conversation? We've become a people that talk at each other. Everybody gives if somebody, what we do? Somebody, gives a speech, somebody gives a counter speech. Somebody writes an article, somebody writes a counter article. Nobody says, let me give this brother a call and let me share with him, here are my disagreements with you. What do you think about them? Let's have a conversation about it. I invite you to my house and let's discuss. Let our kids play together. Let our wives meet. And let us just talk about this, this issue that I don't agree with you in. I want to know your perspective. When do we do that? Isn't that brotherhood? Isn't that brotherhood? Instead of talking at people, you talk to them. You talk to them? People told me some time ago about myself. I don't really care. Honestly, I don't care what people say online. It doesn't faze me at all. I don't have the time. I have too many things to do for my parents and my kids and my students to worry about what happens online, honestly. You know? So, people don't, they're saying that you follow some deviant tafsir. I was like, who are they? I want to go to their house. Can I invite them to my house? I have good ice cream in my house. I'd love to sit and talk to them. No. The great scholars have refuted you. I was like, okay, that's great. What does refutation mean? Can I still come out of my house? Do I have to wear a headband of some special sort? What does that mean? You refuted me. What does a Muslim do refuting another Muslim? How does that work? If you don't like what I have to say, which is perfectly fine, I'm no prophet. You're no prophet. It's okay if we don't like what each other has to say. You can come to me and say, I disagree with you. You can write to me and say, here's what I don't like. Here are my concerns. This is why one of my best friends in life is Sheikh Omar Sulaiman. Honestly, I love this man. I really love him. He's my bigger, younger brother. It's confused, an oxymoron walking around. But he'll listen to something I said and he'll go at me and say, you shouldn't have said that. That's wrong. I was like, okay, I'll undo that one in the next khutbah. Okay, cool. He says something, I say, hey, why do you say that, man? That hurt. Don't you think someone will get hurt with that? He's like, yeah, you're right. Okay, I'll undo that one. We can openly talk to each other. We can disagree. We can have a conversation. That is when ghulu dies. When we stop talking to each other and we start quick to judge, quick to validate your own position. You're so in love with your own position, you can't let it go. I was in that. When I was in a group, I loved that group. I was that group. I was the ambassador of that group. And when I heard something that countered the ideas I was carrying, I was ready to crush it. Oh boy, you better not stand in front of me when you give me a counter delete. I will destroy you. I've memorized all the lines. I know which angle you're going to come from, bro. I trained myself in this. I did. But then I realized my loyalty is no longer to Islam. My loyalty has become to these particular understandings of Islam and the way I'm protecting them. I have to check myself. I've caged myself, and I'm trying to cage others. So years go by when I realize this, and I dedicate myself to one thing. I realize I will never be able to understand all of Islam. It's too big for me. I'm going to dedicate myself to trying to better my own understanding of the language and some things about Allah's book. Maybe if I can get 1 or 2 drops out of Allah's book, I will lead a happy life. I'll be okay. So I focused myself on that for the last 10 years. And in that time, as I traveled, I would meet some kids that are still in one of those, one of those phases that I've already been through. And they sit me down, brother, nice speech, but I have some concerns. And they'll walk me through the spiel. But I know the spiel, bro. I used to do it myself. So he gets to point 1 and point 2, and I stop him at point 3. I say, hey, wait. This was point 3, right? And this was the point 4 you were going to make? He goes, maybe. And I was like, how long you been attending the halaqas? He goes, what halaqas? He goes, I know. I know, bro. Because perhaps I've been attending some halaqas. I was like, yeah, and you have hookah late night afterwards? Discussing how you're going to bring Islam to society? You usually miss Fajr, haven't called your parents in a while? Developed a smoking habit in addition to the hookah that wasn't enough for you? Perhaps. And then I said, listen, bro, I know you really want to do this for Islam. You want to debate me for Islam. But I'm asking you 2 things. Call your mom and dad every day and pray Fajr. Just work on that. Okay? We'll establish Islam together. Just work on that. You get caught up in this stuff, in one thing or another, and the world becomes nothing to you. And I tell you, when you get caught up in these ideologies, the first thing to suffer is your family. The first thing to suffer. I'm being very real with you. This is ghulu in deen for us. We hang on to one idea, we tell ourselves we're serving Islam by stending nights and nights discussing something or another at these late night restaurants with questionable content on the TV screens. And we do this on Steinway Street, and we do this on Atlantic. I know. We do this on Atlantic, we do this by Chicken Guy, right? And we do this, and then, the mother doesn't know where you are, the father doesn't know where you are. Nobody's ever checked the cache on your laptop. you know? And we do this and we think we're serving Islam, doing something for our deen. Stop kidding yourself. The first thing the deen fixes is your relationships. If you're really serving your deen, you would see a tremendous change in your relationships. The way you are with your brother, your sister, your parents. You know, the ones closest to you are drawn to the perfection of your akhlaq. That was what the Rasul ﷺ did first. He had that even before Risala. He had the perfection of akhlaq, character. The people most impressed with him were his family. Today, you will find young people, when they get into the field of da'wah, the people least impressed with them are who? Their family. Everybody else, oh, and the family says, eh. You know? Honestly. You want to become a speaker, you want to give da'wah to people, you want to convince people of Islam. Where's time with your family? This is ghulu in religion. We've got to balance all of this stuff. And if you're living in New York, you're already used to balancing crazy numbers of things. You've got work, you're living hand to mouth. It's not an easy life here. It's one of the most expensive places to live in the world. That's where you chose to live, you know. I know you don't think there's nothing outside of this in America. Everybody else has got straw in their mouth and they're just, you know, and a banjo in the trunk, you know. I call some of my old friends, how's Texas? Dong, 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 dong. I was like, that's pretty good out there, you know. So. But you live here, so yeah, it's hard, even harder to balance here because you have time for nothing. You have time for nothing. You leave 6 in the morning, an hour and a half, 45 minutes, whatever it is in the subway, and after being pushed around in the bus, then you go to work, then you go to school, then you do some more work, then you get some pizza, and then you get back on the train, and then by the time you get home, you're done. You don't see your parents, you don't see the wife, you don't see the child, you don't see nothing. You know? And you know what? If that's the case with you, you need to figure out a way to make time for your family. The balanced approach to religion means you learn to balance all of this stuff. And you don't lose your soul in the process. If you have 45 minutes on the train, then just memorize some Quran at that time. Keep yourself busy with something productive. Do some ibadah. Every second will count. Every letter you recite is 10 good deeds. Imagine how much you can rack up over time. I remember memorizing Surah Al-Isra and Surah Al-Kahf on the subway when I was in college. You know, one ayah a day. I didn't even know Arabic at the time. I was just like, okay, just go one ayah a day, one ayah a day, one ayah a day. You know, it's not hard. You could do it. So now at least you have some spiritual avenue. Maybe you didn't get to sit looking at the sky. Maybe you didn't get to do Qiyam al-Layl in a masjid. But you've got to find ways to serve, to fulfill the needs of your heart during your day. You have to make that time. You have to make the time to reach out to your parents. And text messages aren't enough. I'll call you later. That's not, I'll talk to my parents. I told my mom I'll call her later. You want to text her, tell her you love her. And if you tell your mother you love her, and she says, no, you don't, that means there's something wrong with you. That means you keep saying it, but you've done nothing for it. You've never spent any time with her. You've been ignoring her. So those words offend her because she can see right through them. So you don't get, I told my mom I love her. She said, no, you don't. No, actually, she said, where's the proof? You've been ignoring me all this time. Well, saying I love you changes everything? These are empty words to you. If you love someone, you spend time with them. Without your phone, without your laptop. You sit with them. If you love your father, you do that. You spend time with them, you know? For the young men here, learn to get up for Fajr, man. Stop hanging out late night. It's New York. I'm just being real. We could give theoretical lectures. You're not getting up for Fajr. Wake up. Stop going to sleep late. That's balance in your religion. Don't go out late night. I know the restaurants are open till whenever. I know you're used to the nightlife. I know. It's tempting. It's fun. When else are you going to do it? You need to let loose. There should be a time you can let loose. That's fine. But if it's hurting your salat, man, you just got to stop. You got to find some other way, you know? Young men here, you know, you should have a relationship with a masjid where you go where nobody knows you, and you go every once in a couple of weeks and you spend a few hours just sitting there reciting Quran to a wall. You're just sitting there on your own, nobody's around you, you're just doing ibadah, it'll help you. It'll give you peace. If you can't go to a masjid, go to like Flushing Meadows Park and sit by the water and recite Quran. Where nobody cares about nobody's going to be around. You know? Just do that. You have to find that time. This is ghulu in religion. And if we don't find it, and when you get ghulu in religion, things go crazy. The Christians developed ghulu, overboard attitudes in their religion. It led them to even worshipping their prophet. That's why it's mentioned twice. لا تغلوا في دينكم غير الحق. The second time in Surah Al-Ma'idah, without any justification. You're going to go overboard in one thing or another without justification. It's going to mess you up and mess the people up around you. The final bit of advice that I have for myself and for all of you, when it comes to a balanced approach to religion, this is my final bit of advice. I pray you take it seriously. And this is something it saved me a lot of trouble, and I hope it saves you a lot of trouble too. In my personal life, this is something personal. I realized that in Islam, in the realm of Islam, no one scholar, no one school of thought, or no one person, no one individual has all the answers. And they shouldn't. Allah didn't do that. Allah made us shu'ub, which means we depend on one another. Just the nature of things. So if somebody is giving you knowledge of aqeedah, for example, you're studying aqeedah, which is a great thing to study, that doesn't necessarily mean that's your source for fiqh. If you're studying fiqh from someone, that doesn't necessarily mean that's your source for tafsir. If you're studying tafsir with someone, that's not necessarily mean that's your source for hadith. If you're studying hadith with someone, it doesn't necessarily mean that's your source for history. You have to go to people that are specialists in their field. If you really want genuine answers and deep and profound answers, you have to go to people that specialize in their fields. One of the things that's caused an insane amount of damage to Islam in the last century is people who know a little about a lot of things. When you have a little bit about a lot of things, it seems like it's a lot of knowledge, but none of it is deep. You see? You can quote a lot of different things, but you have depth in nothing. You see? Somebody came to me during the question and answer session and asked me about donating body parts, donating organs. So, I don't know. But you study the Quran. Yes, that's a fiqh question. I don't know. That's not my field. You need to ask someone who knows. That's a hard question. Somebody asked me a question about aqeedah or about history. I don't know. You need to ask somebody who studies aqeedah in depth, and they can explain it to you in a way that is more appropriate to the concerns you have. I can't answer that for you. What about this hadith? Is it sahih? I don't know. But it's in Bukhari. I still don't know, because that's not my field. People write about me and they complain. Somebody emailed me, why don't you ever talk about hadith? I said, because I'm not a muhaddith. Because I have too much respect for that subject. I only quote a hadith, I only mention a hadith if I have sat with a scholar myself and have understood it from a scholar. And I've done that with only a few ahadith. I've read a lot of ahadith. I've studied a lot of ahadith. I don't talk about them because I have too much respect for that subject. I don't want to make that a casual subject. Because I've seen the damage that does. I've seen the damage it does when a high school or a college student Googles hadith on this, that, or the other, and they don't even know the Arabic, nor the chain of narration, nor the nuances, nor the context, and they're ready to quote it in the face of their MSA friend who they're trying to beat in an election or something. I've seen it. That's a disrespect to the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These words are sacred. You have to have some respect for them, some respect for the nuance that's in them. And you can do a lot of damage to people. If you don't know what you're talking about, you think you're quoting the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you're doing damage to people. And that's why not only should we not speak about things we don't have deep knowledge of, don't talk, you can give people advice. You can tell people about being regular in their prayer. You can tell people to stop lying, stop being angry. These are universal pieces of advice. You don't need to be a scholar for those things. But when it comes to shari'i matters, what's halal and what's haram, what should a married couple do when they're having trouble? They shouldn't be going to a faqih, they should be going to a counselor. That's a counseling realm. No, what does Islam say about my husband who does this? No. There's a lot more to that story than your husband doing this. You've been married for some time. There's a lot of issues there you need to sort out before you say, my husband does X, Y, Z. I need an Islamic answer. It doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. You're oversimplifying and you're trying to use the religion as a weapon against your loved one. Don't do it. And don't do it against your wife either. Husband and wife don't get along, and the wife is crying, and he says, what's the matter? No, don't talk to me, I don't want to talk to you. And he quotes the hadith, if you're displeased with me, the angels will curse you the entire night. It's a sahih hadith. It's a sahih hadith. But you know what? Even if she turns towards you, you think it's because of love? Is that love? You were okay with threatening her with the curse of angels? You call that a marriage? Is that why the Rasul gave that, sallallahu alayhi wasallam? Shame on you. How dare you quote that? People beat their wives and they say, "Al-rijal qawwamuna 'ala an-nisa." How dare you? How dare you disrupt the word of Allah like that? Al-rijal qawwamuna 'ala an-nisa. You even know what that means? Qawwam, I gave khutbah about that in JMC when I came last. The word qawwam is actually qaf, waw, and mim. It shares a root with one of Allah's names, Al-Qayyum. Al-Qayyum is actually one of, Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyu Al-Qayyum. When the Arabic language is sacred because Allah chose it for Quran. And within the Arabic language, the letters that make up Allah's names are even more sacred. So when you think you know what Qawwam means, think again, it's a letter. These are letters that are one of the names of Allah, come from these letters. So before you draw any conclusions, study, know what it means first. And it means caretaker, the one who stands up for someone, the one who does activities with someone. It has over 100 meanings, and beating is not one of them. Neither is authority. Neither is authority. Terrible translation, men are authority over women. The authority of men is established in other ayat, not this one. So know what you're talking about. That's blasphemous. This is ghulu in deen. This is the abuse of religion. That's what we have to prevent as a people. This is what it's happening, and it hurts. I hear people quote ayat and a hadith. Just because somebody's quoting ayat and a hadith doesn't mean they're right. Their own imbalance is seeing things in an imbalanced way. You have to become critical thinkers. You can't look at something in a shallow way and say, okay, that's what it is. No. I need more understanding. I need depth. I don't care if you don't know the whole Quran. It's okay. If you know 2 ayat, know them in depth. I don't care if you don't know all of the Bukhari. It's fine. If you know 2 ayat, two hadith, 1 dua, know it in depth. Know it well. Spend time on one thing. Really internalize it and then move on. Then move on to something else. It's all become about quantity and not quality. Can you imagine if the ocean that looks so beautiful, by the way, if the ocean wasn't as deep as it is, it was just 6 inches deep, it would still look like it does. From a distance, you'd say, oh wow. But there's no depth. That's what we've become in our Islam. No depth. And no appreciation for depth. Those of you who listen to my khutbahs, how many ayat do I quote in a khutbah? Usually how many ayat, Young guys come and ask me, Ustad, I'm giving khutbah for the first time. Can you give me a bunch of ayat? And they write like a 4-page thesis that today's khutbah is going to be about taqwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and He says, and He says, and what else did He say? Where did it go? Aqim as-salat. When you're quoting one ayah, one hadith, one ayah, one hadith, one ayah, one hadith, one story, one ayah, one hadith, you didn't stop at one ayah. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ? Why don't they think deeply about the Quran? لِيَدَّبَّرُوا آيَاتِهِ, so they can think deeply about the ayat. This is thinking deeply or just moving along? I mean, when you see a beautiful mountain, do you just say, oh, that's nice? Do you do that? Or do you stand there and go, whoa? When you see an incredible painting, do you just stand there stunned by it, or you just go, We don't even do that with things Allah created in this world. We're stunned. Nobody goes to the beach for 1 second. Oh, such a beautiful sun. Oh well. Next thing, mountain. Where's the mountain? Let's look at the mountain. Let's get this out of the way. When you're experiencing something beautiful, you want to stop. You want to taste it. You want to take it in. You want to be able to appreciate it because this might not come again. Why don't we have that attitude towards the text? Because we have ghulu. Just give me the quick version. Give me the quick version. Let me move. This book is so beautiful. The sunnah is so beautiful. The Rasul's words, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, are so beautiful. They will make you cry if you just spend time on them. If you want to find balance in your life, I know I said the last advice. Can I give you one more bit of advice? One last one. I promise, one last one. If you and I want to find balance in our lives, here's where we begin. We begin by conversing with Allah. If you're not personally talking to Allah, you're never going to find balance in Islam. Talking to Allah means you have to learn the etiquette, the manners of making dua. You have to learn what it means to pray to Allah. And it's okay. If you don't know Arabic and you don't memorize well, you can pray to Allah in Urdu. It's fine. Punjabi, I'm not sure. But Urdu is fine. You should be okay with Urdu. Okay? If IUD is Guyanese, it's okay. Okay? But it's good for you if you were to memorize some of the prayers of the Prophet ﷺ, because that's how he used to converse with Allah. Our messenger, Allah conversed with him and he conversed back with Allah. The Quran is how Allah conversed with him. The du'as of the Prophet are how the Prophet ﷺ conversed with Allah. It's a two-way conversation, right? So every Muslim should own a copy of the Fortress of the Muslim. You should have a plan on how in the next week you're going to know one more dua. Just one, as a family, the whole family will learn one more dua, and you'll sit there and you'll think about what Allah is asking you to say when you enter the house. What are you actually saying? When you enter the masjid, what are you actually saying? Think about it. It'll make you different people. It will just absolutely make you different people. And it will make you comfortable speaking to your master. And those who speak to their master, Allah guides them in ways you can't even imagine. You would think, Ustad, in the middle of all of these groups, and all of these ideologies, and all of this information on the internet, and all of the attacks on Islam, there's so much confusion. How in the world are we supposed to find guidance? How are we going to find guidance? And my answer to you is, if you talk to Allah, then you could be in the darkest times and in the most hopeless situation, and Allah will find a way to guide you. This is how I wanted to end this. The story of Robert de Villa. You know who that is? No, you don't, because I do. 3 months ago, I gave khutbah in Fort Worth. I haven't been to that masjid in 4 or 5 years, and they invited me for some reason, and I went. And I gave khutbah there. My khutbah was about dua. An Egyptian fellow comes up to me, a young man came up to me afterwards, he goes, Allah fulfilled my dua today. And I said, what's your dua? He said, my dua was that Nu'man Ali Khan should meet Robert de Villa. I was like, are you Robert de Villa? He goes, nope, I am not Robert de Villa. Robert de Villa is my friend. But I think Allah is fulfilling my dua. I was like, fire away, I want to know. Robert de Villa is a young man who lives in a town 40 minutes past Fort Worth. He was a farmer, young guy. And he was hit with some sort of genetic disorder that kicked in later on in his life, and he became paralyzed from the neck down. And he lives in a nursing home. Most people in that nursing home are 90 years, 100 years. They're really, really old people. And then there's, his room where he's paralyzed neck down. He's the only 30-something-year-old that is in the nursing home, okay? And he's been in that nursing home for the last 10 years. His family got a computer for him that's voice activated, so he can give voice commands, put a headphone on and Google stuff and search stuff so he can surf the web and find information. In his room, and by the way, staunch Christian family, the minister comes and prays for him every week and things like that. And his best friend was in the bed next to him. One of his best friends. He became best friends because he met him at the nursing home. This person was also paralyzed and he needed a new liver. Okay? A liver transplant. He was waiting for a liver transplant. And they used to talk about, God and things like that all the time. They were good friends. Finally, his best friend got a call that there's a donor available for the liver. So he's so excited. He goes, Robert, I'm going to miss you, but I'm going. I've got a donor. So they take his friend and they go into the operation, and his friend died at the operating table. Now his friend, who's also a Christian, the deceased friend, his sister, took one of the amulets of his friend, a crucifix, and she gave it as a gift to Robert. This is a reminder of your old buddy. So he hung it on the side of his hospital bed. Robert de Villa lives a pretty decent life in there. The nurses take care of him. He's a happy guy. And one day he goes to sleep and he sees a man in his dream. That man says his name is Muhammad. And he says, pointing at the crucifix, God did not send messengers so they would worship the messengers. God sent messengers so you could worship God. And Jesus was just a man. He walked in the markets and he ate food. He walked in the markets and he ate food, and the dream stopped. He only knows that Jesus was just a man. He knows there's a man named Muhammad that said that to him. He said that messengers came so people could worship God and not the messengers. This is all he knows. So he starts Googling Muhammad. He finds Islam. He takes Shahada. When he takes Shahada, he wants to learn about the Quran. So he goes on these chat sessions and finds somebody needs to teach me Quran. He finds a brother in Egypt that he gets together with on Skype to try to learn Arabic. Learn the Arabic alphabet. Once he learned the Arabic alphabet, he learned to recite the Quran. He memorized 10 surahs from his hospital bed. Then he said, I'm beginning to memorize the Quran, and I'm beginning to learn about this Prophet, but I need to understand the Quran. So he starts Googling how to understand the Quran. And for some reason, he ends up on my videos. And he starts watching my stuff. And he watched almost everything. And then here's the kicker. In the nursing home, there was an Egyptian fellow that used to come in and do some repair work. The Egyptian fellow has his own awesome story. The guy had basically lost faith. He wasn't religious. The nearest masjid to him was 50 miles away. So he didn't really go to Jum'ah much anymore. But he felt a spiritual void, so he started going to the church just to feel closer to Allah. Raised Muslim. He goes to the church just to feel closer to Allah. He's passing by Robert's room one day and he hears, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. So he walks into his room and says, Robert, what are you listening to? Robert says, nothing. That was me. And the guy says, you're Muslim? He goes, yeah, I became Muslim. And now this friend is in shock. How does Allah guide someone in the middle of Churchtown, USA, in a nursing home, with a crucifix on the side of his bed that he doesn't even have the physical strength to move, and the guy himself says, I want to come back to Allah. So he tells him about his, the friend he found online, Norman Ali Khan. So the Egyptian fellow starts watching my videos. And then he says, I wish I could meet him one day. And he says, okay, I'll pray for you. And after 5 years, that Egyptian friend shows up at the same masjid that I haven't been to in 4 years. And after Jum'ah says, I think Allah wants to fulfill my friend's dua and my dua. So I said, I think He does. Let's go. So I took a few of us and we went. And we met with Robert. We had a beautiful conversation with him. And inshallah, for Eid, we're going to go to his nursing home again. The nursing home was pretty shocked. You're all here to meet Robert? He's like, yep. Why do you want to meet him? He's an inspiration. I'm like, okay, let me check if we can. And they had to call the hospice administrator and all this stuff, and then eventually let us in. And Robert's in shock. And then I meet with Robert, we're talking, and I was like, hey, Robert, so I heard you memorize some surahs. He says, yeah. Can you recite one for me? So he recited Surah Al-Asr. Not one of us was not crying. We're just in tears. When somebody turns to Allah, don't worry about the means. Guidance will come. Balance will come. I want to tell you some more about Robert because young guys are here. Young guys that play basketball. Young guys that are healthy. Young guys that have ambition. I told you what's his paralysis, from where to where? Neck down. He has a special wheelchair that has to hold pretty much every part of his body in place. He can't just sit in a wheelchair. It holds his neck and it holds every other part of his body in place because he has no control over his limbs. And he has to have a special van where the wheelchair locks in so that if it goes through a bump or whatever, he doesn't, receive the shock. So he made a request. He wants to go to the Friday prayer. They didn't have the special van, so they put him in a regular van. And so he went in the regular van and a few bumps and his spine got even more hurt. He went to Jumu'ah. He came back in excruciating pain. And they said, I'm sorry, Robert, you're no longer able to sit in your wheelchair. You're going to have to stay in your bed for the next 6 months at least. If you see recovery, then you can get back up again. I met him in that span. He had already been in that bed for 3 months already. And the reason he was in that bed is he went to the Jumu'ah prayer. And he told me about the Jumu'ah prayer. He said, I've never felt more peace in my life than I was in that masjid. And you know what I'm going to do, Brother Norman? When I can sit in my chair again, I'm going to go to Jumu'ah. I'm going to go to the masjid because I've never felt like that before. There's someone who has nothing but control over his mouth and his eyes. And he says, I only find peace in the masjid. And here we are. These masajid, I don't care what ideology, what school of thought, what they're talking about in the masjid, what fitna is there. I don't care. It's still Allah's house. Just go to pray. Don't go there to talk to people. Go there to talk to Allah. Just go to talk to Allah. You're just going for you and Allah. That's it. That's it. Other things will come, but you're not going for them. You're just going there to find peace. You'll become different people. If Allah can guide Robert Davila, Allah guide everybody. And then he said, sometimes I wonder why Allah put me in this position. And then I say to myself, what am I kidding? Allah has given me so much. I am so grateful for what He gave me. And if this is the way He was going to bring me to Islam, it's all worth it. So worth it. You have Muslims that lose a little bit of health and they say, why is Allah doing this to me? And this man, if you would think, nowadays atheists argue because of suffering, there's no God. If one man has in a position to say, I don't believe in God. If there was a guy, why would I be in this position? It would be Robert Davila. That guy would say, I don't believe in God. If there was one, why would I be in this mess? And yet he's in this position, and I've never seen a face with more nur. Never. I've never seen a face that has more contentment on it. He's so satisfied with life. He's so happy. He's just happy. The last 7 or 8 khutbahs I've given are actually based on one sentence each on one sentence that he said in his conversation. Is that profound? He's a teacher to me. I consider him a teacher. He's my sheikh. Somebody says, who's your sheikh? I say, Robert Davila. Really? Is that a pizza place? Or no. The guidance is all around us. You don't have to get worried about what's not there. There's plenty there. You know what Allah did for the people of the cave? He even guided them in where to sleep. He even guided them on where to turn. As the sun was coming, they'd turn away from it. As the sun came from the other side, they'd turn the other way. Allah will guide you in your sleep when you make dua to Him. He'll even guide you in your sleep. Every toss and turn will be guided by Allah. Can you imagine? We shouldn't be skeptical in Allah's guidance. We shouldn't worry about how am I going to find balance. No, that's Allah's job to guide you. Your job is to talk to Him. Your job is to get sincere. That is the message I have for you. That is how we're going to find balance. Honestly. And if once you do that, once you become sincere to Allah, Allah will open doors. Allah will give you friends. Allah will give you teachers. Allah will give you access to resources, all of which are going to bring you closer and closer and closer to Him and to the truth and make life better for the people around you. This is really the gist of what I wanted to share with you. I don't want to speak longer. I've spoken too long already. I love coming back to New York, and I'm so, so grateful for Queen's College. And the MSA here, mashallah, they put up with me. I give them a hard time, and they still put up with me. I show up half an hour late, and they're still really nice to me. They didn't give me the look of death that I used to give to speakers when I was the MSA guy. And Imam Siraj Wahad showed up 40 minutes, and I was like, Mom. And then he used to, it's okay, Nu'min, it's okay, it's okay. You're doing good, Nu'min, you're doing good. I was like, okay. Okay, fine, since you put it that way. I shall accept that, But I'm very grateful for you guys, and putting up with this crowd. We're not easy to deal with. We have lots of complaints too. So if you see an MSA person, just pat them on the back or say thank you or whatever. Appreciate the effort that they've done. I'd also like to thank all the moms that are here with their little kids, because that's hard. It got hot in here, and I'm amazed at the children that didn't scream and yell more than what I heard. I heard very little. Where's the crazy kid that was over here? Oh, that was her? Oh, iPhone, okay. Okay, that's the other thing I'm grateful for. And finally, of course, I'd like to, I want to share can I share some news with you? Is that okay with you? Okay. This is cool. So I went to, last summer I got a chance to go to Malaysia. And alhamdulillah, I made some really cool friends in Malaysia. It was like a life-altering trip. The part of the trip was Singapore, and also stopped over in Bahrain. And had the honor of being at the International Islamic University of Malaysia, and I spoke also with a number of media outlets there. And I realized something. We've been cooking an idea back home in the Bayina laboratories, which basically has to do with bringing meaningful content to Muslims. I think, alhamdulillah, the lecture thing is great, but it can only go so far. Right? What we really, really need is engaging media. Well, I think it's really important that we have engaging media. So we have this idea for basically a talk show, but that's a mix of social commentaries, special reports, and accomplished Muslims. Like, I want to interview people that are doing cool things in the ummah. I want to have journalism that's positive about things that are happening in the Muslim world. So there's interest already, and they're trying to pick it up in Malaysia, inshallah ta'ala. Make dua that works out. And I'm going in Ramadan again to, yes, I know, I got it. So, but the cool thing is we are actually going to build Bayyinah Studios. I want to beat Oprah in Texas, inshallah. We're hoping to actually buy a church that's on sale and turn it into a live audience studio and start talk shows and discussions there that will be broadcast online, and it will also be broadcast in TV stations around the world, inshallah ta'ala. Now, if you would like to contribute towards that, we don't do fundraising, but what we do ask you to do is subscribe to Bayyinah TV, bayyinah.tv, because the next couple of months of subscriptions are going to go towards the purchase of the campus. You subscribe and you get access to the translation of the Quran, the Arabic courses, all the stuff that's on there, and all the new stuff that's coming on there. How many people are familiar with Bayyinah TV here? Quite a few, mashallah. That's great. So the sisters, this might interest you. The two new upcoming things on Bayyinah TV, the recent one was the hijab lecture. What is hijab anyway? So I did a 4-hour piece on just the ayah of hijab, because there's some confusion about it apparently. So I figured let's just talk about the ayah. Let's sort that out a little bit. And the next ayah that I'm going to be working on in a month and a half's time is the ayah about beating women. Because if we don't love the ayat, where's our iman? If the ayat are giving us trouble, then we have to fix that, don't we? We have to love the ayat. Thank you so very, very much for listening and being patient with me. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.